Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Greetings, explorers of the digital wilderness. It's time to sit back, kick off your virtual boots and air those augmented reality socks. Relax, ease your mind and let the soothing tones of another episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson fill your ears. It's time to get all learned up. Yeehaw! Now, in today's episode, we're looking into renewable energy source that has been promising so much for more than 3 decades, but still yet to deliver a meaningful electrical power load. Maybe decades is long enough. Now, we'll also take a look at the latest and greatest racing car simulator for a virtual test drive, and we've come a long way from the Sony PlayStation Gran Turismo, let me say. And with petrol prices soaring and refuelers scowling from the bowser at smug EV drivers as they pass by, here in Australia, the government is set to level the playing field, at least a little, as plans for a road users tax start to take shape. But more on that later. It's time to welcome our futurist extraordinaire to the microphone. Welcome, Matthew Dickerson.
Did we have a volume warning at the beginning there? I'm not sure if we should be having yee-haws at that volume with a volume warning.
I just had to let the beast out. And sorry, my apologies to anyone who was wearing the earbuds with the sound turned up too loud.
Maybe you set the earbuds with a maximum volume so that they don't deafen you with yee-haws as they go. Now, I wanted to start off this week not so much about new technology, but about a bit of technology that's been around for a long time, in fact, I'd say thousands of years. But sometimes technology goes wrong. And we saw an incident during the week where a tower crane was hit by some pretty severe winds and the boom arm that was attached to the tower crane came off and then bent over in a bit of twisted metal over the top of a building.
Fairly spectacular.
It was, scary. Thankfully, no one was hurt. No one died during the incident. Obviously, it'd be very frustrating to be the developer saying, we've just about finished this particular project.
Yeah, it was just put that last lick of paint on.
That's right.
Yeah,
and now I'm sure they have to do some structural assessment and look at the waterproofing, a whole range of things there. But I thought we might talk about the tower crane because I find the tower crane quite fascinating. You see them all over the place. You don't think too much about it.
They just appear.
They appear, don't they? So there's a few things that I find.
So they fall out of the sky, don't they?
That's right. The skyhawks. That's where skyhawks got their name from. So one of the things that's interesting is how it gets there. And then the other thing I think is interesting is how it actually works once it's there. So to get there, and I've watched some videos on this because I was fascinated about it one time when I looked at some tower cranes in a big city and went, how do they all get up there?
Yeah.
You can't kind of bring another crane in to put that crane up because then you'd need one already that was taller than that one. And how did that one get there? It's which comes first, chicken or the egg?
Yeah, but the thing of it for me was it's just that they wouldn't be there one day and then next day they're up and they're tall and they're doing a job.
Yeah. So
it's quick.
It is. So obviously you've got some good foundations. You've got some concrete. You've got some pylons there.
That's a good place to start.
That's
Make
right.
sure you're stuck to the ground.
And you can probably put the first couple of pieces of lattice on reasonably easily or even bring in a little crane to put those pieces on. But then when it gets to a certain height, how do you go after that? And that's where it's fascinating. I'd recommend anyone go and watch a video on it because they
I'm going to have to now because I've never seen this.
Well, they put a frame around the outside of the tower itself, and that frame is obviously a bit larger than that. And then it's got some hydraulic rams. And then the head that sits on top, it lifts it up slowly. So you need to watch the video fast forward. And it lifts the whole segment up slowly until it gets to the point where it's got enough room to slot another section in. So the crane, which has already got the boom on it and the counterweight on it, so then it lifts into itself another little spot. Some very brave men and women sit around the outside there.
Bolt it.
And bolt it in.
Yeah, right.
And then the hydraulic
take
part.
my hat off to them.
That's right. Take my hat off and good luck to them. And then the rest of it settles back down on the top of that, and that's all bolted together. And then you do it again. But it's surprising just how quick it grows. One lattice segment at a time. So you can keep doing that. And presumably you can do that for a long way until eventually, presumably, the wind that would act on that whole big arm, the big tower, starts to get too much.
Think about the Burj Khalifa, and that's the tallest building in the world, I think it is.
Yeah.
And the crane that was on top of that. Apparently, the guy who had to go to the top of that just used to take it was supplies for a couple of days at least. because it was just too much effort to get up and down.
So, and ones like that, what they typically do, because there are cranes that I've seen that are about 250 metres tall. But what they do with a lot of those is they don't necessarily bolt them to the ground and let it just wave around in the wind. They'll often bolt it to the building that's being built. So as the building grows, then you can bolt the next section up. So you're getting a bit more stability out of the building. And if you're worried about the crane flapping around then you're worried about the whole building.
That's another thing too, being a crane operator and just feeling that rocking and just getting used to that. I don't think I can. You've really disappointed me here because I was actually hoping it was just wizardry.
Yeah, that's right. They wave a wand.
The guy shows up with a funny hat and a cloak and next thing you know, the crane's there.
That'd be much nicer, wouldn't it? So there is a saying, something like modern science and engineering, if you don't know what goes on behind the scenes, it does feel like modern wizardry. It feels like magic. Remote controls, perfect example of that. You know, you press a button on a thing and over there something else changes. Wow, it's magic. But the other part that I find interesting is the actual process, the physics, if you like, of lifting a weight. So you've got a big arm and you've got a short arm out the back and you think, wow, that tower must be strong. Well, no, the tower's actually not that strong. It's a balancing act. So you've got this counterweight. You might have, say, a 20-ton counterweight. So you've got a counterweight, and let's say that was 5 metres out the back of the tower. That's strong enough to be able to handle that without too much weight out the front of that. So that's only 20 tonnes times 5. So 100, what's the unit of torque or Newton metres?
Newton metres, yeah.
So there'd be 100 Newton metres of turning torque, if you like. And then out the front of it, so you could have a 20-ton weight, say 5 metres out the front of your boom. But someone says, hey, Jimmy, crane operator, pick up this 20-ton weight out the end of your arm. Well, hold on, that's now a 30-metre arm trying to pick up. No, that's not going to work because it's going to overbalance. So the crane operator, incredibly skilled, will say, I know what I can lift up in a weight and how far out I can move that along the boom. You want that weight lifted up and spun around at the end. I can only pick up, say, 5 metres. And I think it would be as simple as it is a 1-to-1 ratio. So I think it's 20 times 5, say, and if you want to pick up a 10-ton weight, then you could go out, say, 10 times 10. So you go out 10 metres, so you'd be 100 Newton metres at the front. And if you want a 20-ton weight, you could go at 5. So if you want a 5-ton
and it
weight,
shouldn't matter how high the weight is lifted off the ground. It's only once it's been lifted off the ground that it starts to apply that torque. Yeah,
so if you wanted to go a 5-ton weight, you could go out 20 metres, for example. So it would be that balancing act. I'm sure there's some computerised information inside the cabin for the crane operator to give them an idea of the balancing of all of that. But it is that fine-tuned balance. And so when we saw this one fall down during the week, it wasn't so much about the balance being the problem there. In high winds, typically a bit like you see a windmill where it's got the vane that turns the windmill around to try and catch the wind.
Yeah.
The opposite, a crane operator would do the opposite of that. They would try and point the boom arm down the wind so that the counterweight would be facing the wind and then the wind would go down. That's great if the wind's always coming in one direction, I think would happen in this situation.
Yeah, we got swirling winds.
Correct. So winds are coming, so they turn it around in that direction and then the wind's coming from another direction, high wind, and suddenly you've got things that don't go so well. The scariest part I saw was a video of the woman who was the crane operator crawling down the middle of the tower. When things started to fall off, she thought, this isn't the place for me to be. I'm going to get out of here. And I saw that video going, like my palms are sweaty watching her.
Yeah, that's the stuff that they can feature in some action movie. But
that's right.
Yeah, but the focus for that lady that was climbing down there, just well done to her on how well she was able to maintain a life.
Yeah, that's right, exactly right. So just a couple of quick examples of big ones. There's a Kroll K10,000, which can lift 120 tonnes, and it can reach out, not with the full 120 tonnes, but it can reach out to a span of over 80 metres. And that one's been configured up to about 100 metres tall. But you mentioned some of those skyscrapers around Dubai. Yeah, there are ones over there that are 250 metres tall. So that's a pretty big tower, and not one that I'd be on the top of. 1959 was the first, maybe 1950, maybe early, sometime in the 50s, German engineer Hans Leiber had the kind of first practical design of a tower crane, but not at those heights. It was like, let's go this high and see how we go. But the whole idea of a lever and being able to lift things, I'm sure that goes back thousands of years, the concept of the crane, but just
Well,
that tower crane.
Archimedes said, give me a lever and somewhere to stand, I can move the world.
Move the world, that's right, yeah. Lucky no one gave him a fulcrum, so otherwise our orbit would be all over the place.
All right, we better get this show on the road, otherwise we're going to run out of time, I reckon. Now, in a country like Australia, with a hot and dusty summer as standard, it's a small wonder that backyard swimming pools dot Aussie neighbourhoods like punctuation marks. About 1 in 7 Australian backyards have a pool, did you know? These training grounds for fully sick cannonballs and horsies, backflips and Marco Polo championships, backyard pools are a staple for summertime culture. But if you swim for fitness, a 9-metre pool will make you dizzy with infinite tumble turns before it builds any cardio value for you, really. So a 25-metre lap pool, it's just not practical as an option for 95% of us. Matt, imagine if you could have your own personal lap pool, though.
Yeah, a lap pool sounds like fun for the adults, but not so much for the
it
kids.
It sounds like fun for someone who's trying to get fit.
That's right.
There are some adults who like to play Marco Polo and do horsies and cannonballs.
That's right. And for the kids, I've been to places that got lap pools, and I go, that's great for the Olympians in your family.
Yeah.
But maybe for the kids who just want to play games, it's not so great. So it's a big decision for a household to put in a lap pool or a normal pool, and 99.9% of them go with a normal pool because that's just going to be more fun. But you're right, we are, as far as I could find in my research, we're the number one per household in the world for a pool.
Right.
Yeah, there's a couple of other hot places that do come close.
Yeah, okay.
And we certainly don't have the most number of pools because we've got a small population, but on a per household basis, 1 in 7 was about the right number.
Yeah, I think the number was between 13 and 14%.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got a lot, obviously, and that's great. And you see when you fly over a city and it's daytime, you can see, you look down and you go, pool, 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 pool. Like it's pretty right, especially when you fly in some of the hotter areas that we might fly in, that you see probably more than that 1 in 7. So fascinating. And I remember when my kids were young and they used to do a few triathlons, we used to go, okay, go and do a bit of training in the pool, kids. And man, they were good at their tumble turns because our pool's only about 10 metres long. So they do 3 or 4 strokes.
They had done a bajillion tumble turns.
That's right. And they're not that useful because our triathlons here are typically in the river. So you don't do a lot of tumble turns when you're swimming down the river.
But you get dizzy in a 9-metre pool. You've done a tumble turn before you know what you're doing another one. And then you're doing another one. You've got 2 strokes in before you're doing another one.
So you get great at tumble turns, but not so much at the actual swimming part of it. So we tried one of those ropes. I'm not sure if you've seen them, but they're like a bungee cord.
Oh.
And you go around your waist, bit of Velcro, you tie it around the fence, around the pool fence, and then you get in, you swim your little heart's content out.
Pull the fence.
Yeah. You're a very good swimmer, you might do that. But typically, you kind of stretch out the rope and the rope's pulling you back in kind of thing. But typically what I found the kids would typically do is find the rope wrapped around their ankles while they're trying to swim, because it might, if they just slow down a bit, when it's up tight and taut, then fine. But if they just relax a little bit and just in between strokes, they might just get it caught up. So they look like a poor fish captured in a net. And so that sort of training didn't last very long. And I felt terrible when we'd go down to our Olympic pool sometimes and I'd go, I've got a pool at home, and I'm now driving in a car to take the kids down to Olympic pool to go swimming, and their tumble turns were great, but then they had to go and swim that whole 50 metres. So a better solution would be great. Now, I have seen in the past people with a lot of forethought, and they've installed jets in their pool when they're building the pool. So not just
really powerful jets.
Yeah, that's right. Not for a enjoyment, not for a relaxation jet, but to have some resistance that you swim against jet.
Yeah.
You normally install all the pipes in your pool when you're putting it in the ground to have your filter system working, but most of us don't, well, I didn't anyway, think about putting in some powerful jets to swim against. It was just put the pool in to have fun.
Yeah, you'd need a much bigger aperture pipe, wouldn't you? And,
you'd need that, a bigger pump and a separate apparatus and all the rest of it. So that wasn't anywhere near my thought process about putting in a pool. So you put all in, you swim, and then you go, they can't really train it, can they? So what we love is the idea of putting in some sort of jet that can give us enough resistance to swim against. But my first thought was, this could be a great idea for a dumb ways to die video. What could be better than putting a little jet in, plugging into the power point, and one day the lead gets a bit frayed and I'm putting 240 volts straight into our pool. Look at this person here. What an idiot. Put 240 volts into his pool, and zzz, when he jumped in the pool, forget about the swimming training in there. So what we've got now is a lovely little device, and I watched some videos of it. It was quite fascinating. It's battery operated, so it's low voltage, got a battery, no 240 volts there, and it just drops over the side of the pool and then gives you a fast, you can change a jet of water. But more than that, it'll actually vary. Because if you're selling any product now, it's got to have nano or AI in it. It doesn't have one of those two terms, then you're never going to sell it.
It's not real technology.
That's right. What's that? What a joke. So this has got AI in it. And the AI part of it, I thought, well, where's the AI in the jet? But the AI in it actually varies the stream. It's got an inverter motor, so it's almost infinitely variable. So almost infinite, that's a big number. It's got a lot of variable speeds on it. And so you can vary that so that automatically it will keep you a distance away from the device itself.
Right, so it basically measures how far away you are from the device and
speeds up or slows down. Yeah.
Right.
So if you're going a bit of a sprint, I've only got 100 metres to go, I'll do a bit of a sprint, then you do a bit of a sprint and you start getting closer to the device, and so it goes, oh, hold on there, buddy, I'm going to push you back a bit, and increases the actual speed of that. And it's interesting because I thought, I wonder how much you would notice it, but I know if I go for a swim in our pool, not that I do many laps, but if I go for a swim and the filter's on, we've got one part, obviously the water's got to come back into the pool where the water is actually being pushed out. And you do actually notice when you're swimming against that a little bit of difference, not much because it's only just a normal filter. Yeah. But you can see how this could quite easily be a stream of water that you're swimming against. And I probably think of it like a treadmill in the water. I'm in the same spot, I'm swimming away, and I'm not going anywhere because the stream of water coming past me is like the treadmill where it's moving rather than me moving. I'm not moving in relation to the ground, I'm moving in relation to the water going past me, all relative motion, and away you go.
Well, I just had a visual image then of, people on treadmills, how sometimes it gets a little bit better than them. And it spits you out the back. And I was just wondering, just got a visual image of someone pressed up against the back wall of their pool because this jet just won't relent.
Someone please turn it off. The AI has gone crazy on me. So hopefully that doesn't happen because the AI is clever enough to go, James is all the way at the back of the pool. I might just relax.
He seems to be flailing a lot.
That's right. So it all sounded like a great idea to me. 10 hours of battery life in the battery. The battery does sit outside the pool.
That'll get you across the English Channel for sure.
That's right. So I'm not planning on doing 10 hours of training in the pool at any given point in time. So I just thought that sounded good. They did talk about the fact it can crank up to 3.5 metres per second. I'm not, well, maybe some Olympians could probably go to that speed, but I don't know many people that would swim at 3.5 metres per second. So that's more than you need. But they talked about the fact you can turn it up for water sport. So if you want to play with the kids in the pool, you could turn it up almost like a bit of a game where you kind of get pushed back by it. Maybe not right against the back wall where you can't breathe, but you get pushed back by it. So use it for swimming training, use it. Maybe turn your pool into a theme park and have these jets, maybe a couple of them throwing some water around your pool. But I thought, what a great idea. So this is the sort of thing that's available now as we speak, where you can actually get those jets in your pool, drop it over the side, no installation necessary, and away you go.
Great idea.
Great idea.
Now, harvesting the energy from ocean waves has been a technology promising delivery for at least 30 years. The rhythmic swell of the ocean surface is an endless 24/7 source of energy, and fewer countries enjoy the length of coastline that we have here down under. 30 years or more of dreaming, tinkering, sketching ideas on scraps of paper, 30 years of computer simulations and test labs. Matt, are we getting close to tapping this renewable energy goldmine?
Funnily enough, I was at a function about a week ago and someone said, all these renewables, Matt, why don't we just have tidal power? And the question without notice, the first thought I had was tidal power is available. I know we've used tidal power, but the tides come in and out 4 times, or by the time you go in and out, you've got 4 movements a day, but they're not that violent. They're usually a bit slow. So my first thought, without having any information behind me, was tidal power would probably be a bit too slow moving to have enough spinning power to spin a turbine, to spin a generator and actually generate.
But it's constant. And if you could get the gears to work, then that would be the thing. But that's what they've been trying to work at, getting the gear ratios right. And
so the first tidal power that I could find that was still operating. So after this question, I thought I'd go and research this because I was interested in myself. My answer, which sounded impressive off the top of my head, I don't know if that's right. I better go and check that out. So the first thing I found was there is a tidal power unit in France that's been running, believe it or not, since 1966.
66?
Yeah. So and it's not too bad a size. It's 240 megawatts. And there are a couple of units like this around the world. But what they do is they rely on a couple of things. and I'm not sure if you've been to horizontal falls in the Kimberley region.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I've never been there.
Yeah, so I've been there, and it was fascinating. So we had a plane that landed on the water, and they had a little cabin there, and then they took you out in a big rubber dinghy, and you watched. It was quite fascinating. Obviously, twice a day, you've got these horizontal falls that basically have water, the tidal change there, going through a gap in the rock, and it creates this unbelievable view, and there's all this power going through there. They used to take you through it on the actual little dinghy, but they had an accident and people got injured, so they said, we'll just sit here and watch it now. So you go through it when it's not so violent. But it looks like a waterfall, but it's horizontal.
Yeah,
now, in that particular region of the Kimberley, you've got a tidal range of about 10 metres. So there's a lot moving, and then obviously you've got a narrow gap in the rock. And that's what they do for tidal power. So the one in France, for example, they've created effectively a dam across a body of water. And in that dam, then, they've got a small gap underwater. So when the tide changes, all the water that's going to go from this side, that's right, it rushes. And then they've got the generator in that small gap. So it's a pretty big process to build it. You're effectively damming a bit of water. Yeah. I'm sure some people from an environmental perspective wouldn't be overly impressed. And then you put the turbine there. But then you get the tide comes in. Oh, good, we're getting some power. And the tide's now at an equilibrium, so no power. Oh, the tide's going back out. Oh, good, we get some power. And then so you get that sort of thing happening, let's say, 4 times a day, two tides a day. One's usually a bit bigger than the other tide. So it's constant in that it's happening every day. But people say about wind turbines, they don't generate power, the wind's not blowing, solar panels when the sun's not shining. Well, these are the same. Tidal power is not generating when the tide's not moving.
But that's why we diversify, yeah?
That's logically exactly right. Now,
but the big wave power is different.
That's right. So this is much more exciting, I think, anyway. So tidal, fantastic. We're limited by geography to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. We need big tidal changes, and we need the right body of water to be able to do it because we want to dam it off and push that water through. Wave power, on the other hand, is a bit more exciting, and we do have some wave energy over in Perth. There's a Carnegie wave project, but the problem has been in the past, small projects. So 240 kilowatt was that project, so not that big.
No.
I mean, households now have 40 or 50 kilowatts on them, so it's not that big a project. So if you're talking about scalability, not great. Getting to the story now, after all that intro, getting to the story here, we've got some researchers at the University of Osaka in Japan who have come up with a gyroscopic wave energy converter. And I wasn't convinced about it until I saw they'd come up with an initialism. GWEC, GWEC.
So it's a real thing now.
It's a real thing, that's right. If you've got initialism, we know it's got to be that for real. So it's got a spinning flywheel inside a floating platform. And the secret to this is when they've looked at wave power before, they've said, oh, yes, we've got it. If we can keep the frequency of the wave just like that, we've got some power. And damn that, nature, the frequency of the waves didn't stay exactly the same. So, we've lost power until we get the frequency
can't tame
back.
that nature.
No. And it's not very understanding when we say, can you just do this for us? We want to do this to create power. The secret with this one is that the way they've designed the floating platform and a thing called gyroscopic precession means that as the frequencies change around of the waves, as they will, the spinning flywheel actually reacts to those changes and they get reasonable efficiency out of this whole process.
Okay.
So would you put this on the beach at Bondi Beach and say, there we go, look at that, just we can see it right there, folks? Probably not that practical because, again, the tides come in and out and that wave motion would be there right there, but sometimes it would be grounded. So you'd still.
But you don't need breaking waves.
No.
It's
you'd
just
hit the nail on the head. Because I imagine that people will be thinking, oh yes, I can see those waves breaking and surfers on them.
Well, there's so much energy in those waves when they're breaking,
Correct.
But there's lots of energy in those waves that are just swelling.
And that's the secret. So we've got a swell that's much more consistent. So you put it out to sea, maybe not that far, maybe a couple of kilometres. You've got a swell, pick places where you've got a good swell. So you could probably call it swell power, which might have a nice double meaning there. I'm using swell power today. But it's still waves, but it's essentially you don't need breaking waves. So kind of you remove that image of your head, which most people, when you say what's a wave look like, you would think of a breaking wave because that's what we see on the coast. The great thing about this, and I think of Australia, for example, we've got most people, I think 70% is a number often thrown around, of our population that lives on the East Coast and probably more than that lives on our coast, a lot of the new energy production is happening inland in Australia, solar and wind, because we need space to put that. There's not a lot of room along Bondi Beach to put some solar panels or put some wind turbines, so you typically do that inland. And then you've got transmission problems, transmission costs. You've got to build transmission lines from inland to get it to the coast. But this would be much better because you could have it not that far offshore. And think about the east coast of Australia. You've got a lot of room there that you could put some wave generators to generate that power. Again, at 240 kilowatts, no, you're going to need too much of it. But the whole idea of this is much greater wave generation of power. So it's exciting. And people that talk to me about, oh, yes, I don't like solar, I don't like wind, or whatever it might be, there are going to be a range of solutions. And I've heard people say, oh, we need that base load power like coal. Why do we need that? We can have a range of different generators that will cover all of our day and all of our night, and when we need the power, and we'll have other ways of storing it, not just batteries. There'll be water bodies, there'll be weights, there'll be a whole range of different ways to store power. So I think we'll be okay if some people can just give them a break, give the scientists a break, give the researchers a break and say, go for it. Let's see if we can work this out rather than saying everything's bad, everything's terrible.
And the landscape is changing. We just need to understand that things change. Yeah,
that's right. No. So in the past, wave has been limited by engineering, but I think we're slowly getting to the point where we'll be able to approach that problem with engineering and solve that particular problem. So it's pretty exciting.
Robotaxis, autonomous public transport. In cities like San Francisco, Phoenix and LA, they've shifted from novelty status to fully functional infrastructure now. And the whisper has caught the wind all the way to Dallas, Atlanta, Houston, Miami and Orlando. Autonomous taxis are well past the testing platform, and they are shifting up a gear as we move into the second quarter of 2026. Surely it can't be too long now before robotaxis will be hailed on the streets of Australian cities too, Matt.
Yeah, they did do some testing in Sydney, but we're getting there. And look, 2026 I've declared already the year of the EV. I'm kind of going to say now 2026 might be the year.
You stuck the flag in the ground.
That's right.
Good.
The year of the AV as well, autonomous vehicles.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe 2026, as we get towards the end of this particular episode, might be the year of something else as well, which I'll say when we get to there. So,
right,
2026 is going to be a big year. And just don't remind me about this episode at the end of the year, please.
We've all got short memories.
Yeah, that's right, hopefully. So we do have some activity because it really kind of started to hype up maybe 10 years ago, where autonomous vehicles, Tesla came out, self-driving, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be next month. There's going to have a new update next month, and it's all going to work perfectly, and we're kind of still waiting for it to get there.
We've done a lot of stories about robotaxis before, and we've been part of that hype there, man. We've got to take some of the blame at least.
There is a thing known as the Gartner hype cycle.
Ooh.
And that does go through the stages of a new technology. And so I think there's 5 stages of that. And I think at the moment we're in stage 3, which is the trough of disillusionment. And so it's when all the hype's kind of died down a bit,
and
we realise,
it's like,
and it's kind of like, it was a bit harder than we thought actually. So it sounded great in stage 2. It was fantastic, but now in stage 3, it's not so great. But we're moving past that to the slope of enlightenment, which is stage 4 of the Gartner hype cycle. To give you an idea, Uber has basically said to Rivian, the EV manufacturer, here's $1.9 billion. We'd like to have some robo-taxis operating in the Uber fleet, and they should be Rivians, we think. So go and work on that a bit more. That gives you a bit of confidence if you're Rivian, that you've got someone that's going to actually give you some money for some of these products.
Yeah.
Uber has talked about 10,000 robo-taxis in the US by the year 2028. If you're going to get 10,000 in 2 years' time, you probably better start soon. So, and you mentioned some of the cities in America already that have got robo-taxis. So they're happening in the US already. Waymo, Waymo owned by Alphabet, they've tied Waymo's CEO's compensation directly to the valuation of Waymo. And how is Waymo going to be valued higher? It's by getting some autonomous vehicles, some robo-taxis that are out there actually working. So if I'm the CEO of Waymo, I'm going, well, if I'm going to get paid, and I imagine his package is worth more than $10, I imagine that that's worth millions, tens of millions maybe, to him if he can get the valuation up, if he can get the products out there being bought. That's going to help his valuation. So he's probably pretty focused on that, which is pretty smart from Alphabet to say.
Makes sense.
That's right. We want these products, so measure what you treasure. I'm going to start measuring you against this, and I'm going to start rewarding you, or maybe not rewarding you, on how they go with that. So we've got some of those things happening. We do certainly have the possibility, I think, where the costs of the technology are decreasing. So we know that some of the things that are in an autonomous vehicle are quite expensive. Some of the sensors, the computing hardware, the infrastructure that's all needed to make this work, some of those at the very early innovation levels are expensive. As we go further now, then some of those things are getting a bit cheaper. And there's still all that argument about LiDAR, cameras, radar, all those different things. But all of those sensors are getting cheaper. And my view of the world, it's easy for me to say because I'm not making them, but if I was making a car, I would say, if we're not sure which way we should go, let's stick all of them on and then work out a way for all of those different sensors to operate. But of course, in a competitive environment, I'm making my vehicle cheaper if I don't need all of them on there. But for me, when someone says, I've got a new autonomous vehicle that's got every sensor known to mankind, I go, that's the one for me, thanks very much. The bottom line is, if we can get it mostly right, we know autonomous vehicles are going to be safer than you and I behind the wheel. And you and I are very good drivers, James.
Well, I was just about to say.
But even better than us, because our reflexes, as finely tuned as they are never going to be as good as technology.
And also, technology has got the ability to communicate between cars as well.
That's the secret, isn't it? So driving up, I saw a crash just the other day where someone had just gone through an intersection that was a giveaway sign, and unfortunately,
just a tiny lapse of concentration.
They had a little blind spot, didn't see a car, got distracted. Well, who knows what happened? But a car came along, travelling along thinking they had the right of way, and cleaned up this other car. No one was hurt, fortunately, but the car looked a bit of a mess because that's what happens when cars come together these days.
That's right.
So when you've got the reflexes, when you've got the sensors to sense other cars, to see other cars, and looking in all directions at all times, because we do get distracted. We get tired. We hear a song on the radio. We have kids in the back seat. All those things that happen. Sensible people don't, but there are still some people on the roads that have substances, alcohol, drugs in their system that can impair their ability to drive. So all those things, take all those out of the equation. Unfortunately, one accident, which we've seen happen, when one autonomous vehicle has one accident, even if it was a better outcome than it would have been if they had a human behind the wheel, they get a bad rap when an autonomous vehicle does something. So, and I've said it before, we're very comfortable getting on a plane and we know there's a computer flying it for most of that trip. Sure, a human might be on the end of the controls when it's taking off and landing, but typically the rest of the time it's got autopilot. Now, I grant you, there are not too many dogs that run out at 30,000 feet, not too many kids running on the street playing with their ball, so there are less things that can go wrong at 30,000 feet. But in the early days of some sort of autopilot, and there used to be a lot of people in the cabin. I remember seeing photos of 747s when there was an engineer and a pilot and a co-pilot and
navigator.
A navigator, So there were probably 4, maybe there were 5 people at some stage in the cabin, and now we're down to 2. We haven't gone 1 yet, but we're down to 2 at least. So surely at some stage there, people went, autopilot, is that going to be safe, you reckon? Yeah, sure it is. And the Boeing 787 MAX, the incidents they had happened where the computer took a bit too much control, maybe that scared a few people. But still, we all get on planes and we say, it's okay that autopilot's flying. Yeah. When are we going to get into Robotaxi and go, it's okay that there's a computer driving?
Like all things, it just needs a bit of time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so we'll see if the news keeps coming out of LA and San Francisco and whatnot positively, then...
this is the year, James. This is the year.
Fingers crossed we'll see him here in Australia.
Mark my words and remind me if I get it right.
It doesn't seem that long ago that I was sitting on a seat outside Myers with my flatmates. It was the mid-90s. We'd not long finished uni. We were all poor as church mice, of course, and we were scrounging together the $280 cash to buy a Nintendo 64 with a couple of controllers to share between us. Our game was Mario Kart, and the grudge match rivalries, they fueled glorious celebrations and furious tantrums alike in our cosy little cottage in Mascot. People invested a lot of time and lost a lot of sleep around that. Nintendo 64. Lost a lot of sleep indeed. I guess in hindsight, we should probably have been thankful that we never had access to Prodrive's premium simulator, Matt. This is a game system for the serious enthusiast.
Let me just start off before I talk about this to say the price tag on this. $75,000 for a driving simulator. Now, I must admit, I'm a bit partial to driving games more so than first-person shooter-type games.
Can you do Mario Kart?
I love Mario Kart,
okay,
yep.
And
so I just love the idea that I'm not ever figuring that I go out with a gun and shoot lots of people up, as first-person shooter games do.
Yeah.
But driving a car, I do that every day. So sure, I can do this. And what I do like with various games, Gran Turismo was one where you would drive a track and you'd get a little bit better on that corner. You just take that corner a bit faster. You get the right line for that corner.
Yes, it was all about the racing line. It was so well simulated.
It was, absolutely.
But it was essentially still joystick.
That's right. It was still a normal screen and a joystick. So when you talk about this, and simulated, sorry, just go back a step. I did see one the other day. I was watching a bit of Formula One, and Jack Crawford is the reserve driver for Aston Martin. And they'd let him loose during practice session 1 in a real car. And they interviewed him afterwards, and the main discussion was the simulator work he'd done and then comparing that to reality, because the Formula One drivers are limited in how much time they can spend in cars on tracks to try and keep the cost down. But simulators, they spend hours and hours in simulators trying to get it right. And when they go to the track, it's familiar to them because they've done so much work in the sim.
Yeah.
For Jack Crawford, he doesn't get much time in the real car because he's the reserve driver. But he found it very close to the sim work he'd done, and then actually do some calibrations to the sim versus the track to how he performs on both. So simulators are getting very good. I'm sure they spend more than $75,000 on their simulator in the Formula One team.
But still, $75,000, that's a lot to have in your lounge room.
You can have a real car or you can have a simulated car. And
in your lounge room.
In your lounge room, that's right. So let's get down to it. It's got a carbon fibre monocoque chassis, just like a real race car, which is relevant in a race car doing 300 kilometres an hour. But in your lounge room, if there was a cyclone maybe and my house was collapsing, that's where I'd go. I'd go to the carbon fibre monocoque chassis. So that's fantastic. It's great for its rigidity and lightweight strength, which is not that relevant, you'd think, in your lounge room. Maybe it's good for the removalists, bringing it in, but after that, I don't know, I'm moving around my house that often.
But is this mounted on, like, does this do all the wobbling and stuff as
all
well?
That sort of stuff,
hydraulics?
Yeah, it does all of that. So your carbon fibre monocoque chassis gets to move around while you're driving it. It's got a 49-inch...
Your mum's going to hate this.
Yeah, that's right. It's got a 49-inch ultra-wide curve monitor, 5K resolution, 165 Hz refresh rate. It's got a nice gaming PC with some pretty high-end NVIDIA GeForce RTX graphics card in it, singular. So all of this is designed to give you as close as possible to the simulation in the actual any game you want to play on it. So that would be fantastic. But also, it would look pretty cool. So the whole idea of this is each one is custom made for you. So you can have in the hoop, the Formula One hoop that you see that protects their head if they roll over. You've got one of those because maybe you're going to roll it over. I'm not sure.
If you roll this, you've gone way too hard.
That's right.
Back it off on those hairpin turns, mate.
Maybe you shouldn't be driving a real car. If you can roll this thing, man, what can you do with a real car? They have things like a Bang & Olufsen sound system in there, so it sounds like a real racing car. That's obviously important. Adjustable pedal box, a steering wheel that's got a million buttons, not like the real steering wheels. You can change things that are happening.
Change the radio stations.
That's right, which I'm sure Formula One drivers do. I'm sick of that radio station. Let's get me some decent music. And then, which I thought they should have thrown in. I thought they could have, for that money, thrown in. But additional accessories, you can get racing gloves, protective covers.
Of course you can.
Upgraded audio system, upgraded than a Bang & Olufsen. I thought that was pretty impressive for a start. So apparently this is a market we should be investing in, James. The luxury simulator market is growing as high net worth individuals seek immersive home experiences. I haven't bought any shares in any high-end luxury simulators, but maybe that's my mistake. Maybe I'm not reading the market well enough. So this is a big thing, handcrafted beechwood parts of it there. Like, it just sounds like someone said, how much do you reckon we can get away with charging some people out there that have got too much money?
They really want to drive a Formula One car. Now, I'm just thinking that forget Mario Kart, Nintendo 64s. There is no way that we would have been able to afford even playing this if it was at Time Zone back in the 90s. Right. You know? We would have been sitting outside Time Zone, pulling our cash together. One of us gets to choose to play this thing.
Someone gets a short straw or a long straw and they get to play and everyone gets to watch. I'd be pretty happy just watching someone play this, I reckon. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, that's right. So this is the thing. And I'm actually with you. If this was in a time zone and it was a couple of dollars to play it, then I'd do that. I reckon that'd be worth it. If I didn't have to pay
$50 a game at least.
Maybe. Not sure I'm that keen on my racing car simulators, but and I think you would be doing it an incredible disservice if you played Mario Kart on it. You'd want something that was like a real racetrack.
Well, can this one throw bananas?
Yeah, I don't know if it had a banana launcher as part of it. If it doesn't, that's their mistake.
That's it. So, when Blockbuster video stores closed down all those years ago, some people went into heavy withdrawal. It seems that there really was something in that Friday night ritual. You grab some takeaway dinner and pop into the video store for an armload of VHS tapes and a bag or two of buttered popcorn. There was an air of anticipation. You'd already scanned the catalogues for the latest releases and you made your shopping list. You never knew who you'd bump into in the comedy section too. Well, it was certainly a vibe that some Canadian software developers couldn't let go of. And Matt, now victims of nostalgia like myself, can immerse themselves in a simulated video store experience and relive the good times once again.
I wonder if you need a carbon fibre monocoque chassis to play this one.
You might. $75,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
Isn't
so
crazy?
This isn't like you're not like just driving around a track. You're not shooting things up. You're not navigating mazes. You're going to the video store.
But no, you're running the video store.
You're running the video store.
You're running it, so you're not even going there. You're sitting there, you're organising your store, you're doing the store layout, you're putting the popcorn in just the right place as you're renting the video game or video movie, you're looking at the popcorn and you're tempted by that.
Sorry, so the generation that is now like the 15-year-olds of today, what are they? They're not Gen Y. Are they Alpha or Beta or something? I don't know.
They're crazy.
Have we got, whatever name they are, this is going to be completely bizarre to them. Why would you go into a store to go and purchase movies that you would then have to return?
And the worst part, you talk about looking through the catalogue. It used to frustrate me when we say to the kids, you'd spend 15 minutes talking to the kids about what movie they want to get. So you go down there, I'll get this movie, thinks, oh, sorry, it's all rented out. Yeah. And there's a very funny episode of Seinfeld where he wants to rent a movie and it's rented out already by someone. So he finds out who it's rented by and goes and visits them and says, I need to watch this movie. Can I watch it with you? Some breaches of privacy, I'm sure, in there somewhere.
Do you know, there was one movie on the shelf that only my son ever watched. And the video, the guy behind the counter, he said, you know, your son is the only one who watches this movie and he gets it out frequently.
Oh, really?
Do you just want to have it? And he gave it to him. It was a cartoon character called Bernard.
Right. So these are all the frustrations that, as you say, the 15-year-olds don't understand. Yeah. What you mean? You couldn't just choose it and watch it. You had to get in the car and go down and get it. And then the real killer, and this is where I think I'd love this game, is the overdue fees. You'd walk in and say, come on, buddy, I couldn't get down here. The kids still watching, whatever excuse you come up with, and they go, you'll be right. And I'm thinking, I bet you're not the owner. I bet you're just an employee, because the owner will go, sorry, mate, that's the way we make our money. Yeah. Overdue fees is the cream on top. The actual renting of the movie, we advertise a cheap price, but the overdue fees, that's where we get you. Yeah. So that was always the challenge. So in Retro Rewind, which is screaming up the charts on Steam, if you go and look at the Steam, it is. It is. You doubt me, James. You doubt me.
This sounds like fake news. No, Retro Rewind.
There's no cash for comment here. No, they haven't paid me to say this. But if you go and look on Steam, Steam shows that Retro Rewind is going up the charts. Now, it might have started from a very low base.
This is the Sims that's gone crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, you think about some of the Sims, SimCity. Yeah. I'm going to go and plan a city and build a city. That doesn't sound cool, exciting. Yeah, but that's the thing. It doesn't. If you're pitching it, if you go into the boardroom of some gaming company and go and build a sim that's going to build a,
what kind of nerd is going to want to design a city?
We're going to plan with it. The sewage treatment plant goes here and the water treatment plant goes there, and we're going to put sporting fields there. Like, who cares about this sort of stuff? Town planners maybe, but not.
So, I've knocked it, but I think I'm probably going to check it out. This Retro Rewind.
So you get to play with the store layout, the decor, the equipment. You get to set up your neon lights.
You get to play with the equipment.
You
get to rewind the tapes that hadn't been rewound.
That's right. Damn you, we told you to rewind it before you come up. And you'd avoid, when there were multiple video stores, you'd avoid going back to one where you knew you had some fines outstanding because you know the next movie you rent's going to cost you $20 to rent for one night because I'm going to have to pay those fines. And sometimes they'd say, do you want to pay those fines today? Oh, no thanks. And you just keep doing it.
We just roll it over, thanks.
That's right. Give me the choice to pay or not to pay. I'll just take, we better take some off them. Just pay $1 off that $20 fine. Thanks very much. And then you think, well, hold on, you fined me that much. I should have just bought the movie rather than renting the movie. So you can do all that. You can play with all that. The checkout system only takes cash because when these are around, not many people had FPOS in their video stores. So you'd actually get someone to pull out their coins and their notes and actually pay in cash. They've done it as similar as possible in terms of the amount you would pay for a video back in the 80s and 90s. So now if you rented one, it'd be $30, but now back in those days it might have been a couple of dollars to rent. So as much as possible, everything is just the way it was if you owned a video store. And I'm sure it was a lucrative business in the early days. Yeah. You buy your stock, your videos, your cassettes, you might have paid $20, $30 for them and you rent them out for, I don't know, $3 or $4 each. New releases maybe $5 each, so it doesn't take you long to get your money back and then you're making cream on top of that.
We used to have a video store down in the corner that we go and pop into. It had the loneliest video store lady in the world. She just wanted to, we just want to grab a video, but we'd be caught there for 45 minutes chatting about other movies that we didn't want to watch.
Well, she was doing her research, you see. She was trying to work out what people wanted to watch, maybe, or she was just
look, and the other thing I want to just point out here, I've been known to play lemonade stand for a couple of too many rounds, perhaps. So anyone who's ever played lemonade stand, you know what that's all about. So this is right up my alley. Who am I to make a joke of this?
So Retro Rewind is definitely going to be more interesting and more variety than lemonade stand.
If you want to know where to find me, I'm going to be at the laptop and going to be otherwise occupied.
So here's the scary part. There is a bit of a trend towards mundane job simulators, repetitive, low-stress tasks rather than high-intensity action games. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I could never get my kid to do a boring job. Can you mop the floor? That's boring, Dad. But now my kids are probably playing these mundane, repetitive tasks rather than doing it in the real world. Anyone wants to play these games, come around to my house. I've got some mundane tasks for you to do rather than playing the game of these simulators. You can do it in the real world. You can mop my floor, clean the kitchen, clean the windows, all these sorts. The gutters. There'll be a game come out soon that says clean your gutters. I need someone to clean my gutters.
Fun. That smug look that EV drivers get as they cruise past a busy petrol station may soon be wiped clean away as impending legislation is set to rewrite tax rules here in Australia. Up until now, EV drivers have not been contributing to road maintenance like petrol and diesel drivers do through the fuel excise paid at the Bowser. It's been a good ride, but it looks like the end of a free living road, Matt. What's the likely strategy that EV drivers will have to chip in for roads?
I'm just smiling here just to make sure you can see my Tom Selleck
I can see it.
Smile.
The Tom Selleck smile.
Does it go through the microphone, do you think? If people can see my smile?
Yeah, okay.
I do love some of those stories I've seen out there. So I'm going to go back a little bit here and just talk a little bit about the fuel excise because people still say we need to have that fuel excise replaced because how else are we going to fix our roads? So let's just have a little quick chat about the fuel excise. Introduced back in the late 20s, specifically for the road. So every dollar that was generated through the fuel excise, and I imagine in the 20s there wasn't a lot, but there was some, and the roads weren't great, so they needed lots of money for the roads. So they said, we're going to introduce a tax, and we're going to put that money towards the roads. Fantastic, happy days. And that's what people tell the story of. In 1959, so before you and I and most of our listeners were born, the link between the fuel excise and the roads budget was cut. So since 1959, fuel excise has gone into general revenue. And money is
I was completely wrong about in my intro.
Well, not quite.
Okay,
because,
sorry, I'll let you finish that.
Yeah, because money still goes into the federal coffers through the fuel excise, and some money comes out of the fuel excise
to go
towards roads. So it's not a complete disconnect, but the whole idea that all of that money goes straight to the roads is incorrect. We generate more from the fuel excise than the federal government puts towards the roads.
Right.
So that's a minor problem. The second problem I have, I'm just going to go slightly in a bit of a tangent here, digress slightly, is the amount we generate is a bit of a frustration for me. So through the fuel excise, we generate about, round numbers, $25 billion. So it's 51.6 cents per litre, but generates roughly in Australia about $25 billion. But we don't get that because the government, through the ATO, gives back $10 billion to companies, organisations that have argued successfully with the tax office to say that they don't drive on the road, so why should we pay the fuel excise? And this is the frustration that I have because the fuel excise is not linked directly to the roads, yet farmers, mining organisations, some different organisations that use, for example, a lot of diesel say, well, I don't need to be paying that because I drive my ute around the farm. I'm not using your road, so I don't want to pay for your roads. So we give back, as the government, the ATO, gives back $10 billion. Now, some people say that's really a subsidy for the fossil fuel industry. Because if we didn't give back that $10 billion, because there's no link, why do we give back $10 billion? That's not linked to the roads. So we've got a disconnect there where you're giving back money because you're not driving on the roads, but that money doesn't go towards the roads. It's just taxation. So you should be paying that money. But we give back this $10 billion. Now, I would argue absolutely if we stop giving that $10 billion back to organisations that are using fossil fuels, the adoption of electric vehicles in this country would accelerate dramatically. But while I'm driving around my vehicle on the mining site or on the farm and I'm getting diesel cheaper because I'm getting the fuel excise back, then I'm going to keep doing that because that's cheaper than buying an EV. So when people say renewables are subsidised, we should be doing more fossil fuels, renewables are subsidised from the federal government maybe $2-3 billion. If you really stretched it out, you could probably find enough projects that might get it up to $4 billion, but I think around $2 or $3 billion. But that's to help get the whole renewable industry started. Whereas we're subsidising fossil fuels by minimum 10, probably more like $11 or $12 billion a year. So that's me off my high horse now. So you'll hear the sound of me stepping down from that. And let's look now at the concept here about an EV charge. So at the moment, if you said I'm paying for my petrol with my fuel subsidy and I'm getting 8 litres per 100 kilometres in my ICE, then I'm paying about 4 cents per kilometre to drive my vehicle. So you're kind of paying a per kilometre rate anyway based on the fuel consumption of your vehicle. We know that amount that we're generating is going to go down because cars are becoming more fuel efficient, not just EVs. Some cars are becoming more fuel efficient.
That's right.
Hybrids, for example. So cars are getting better. The federal government doesn't want that. Use lots of petrol because we generate more fuel that way. So again, you're trying to hit some targets around CO2, but you really want people to drive their cars lots and use lots of petrol.
So we can get that excise.
That's right. Yeah. So you've got a budget you want to solve. So I think in general, most EV owners that I've spoken to have said, you know what? I don't mind if they do charge us a couple of cents per kilometre. I don't mind if I pay towards the roads. I'd like it to be directly linked to the roads and I'd like it to apply to everyone because then, gee, wouldn't that even up the playing field a bit and it probably would make people adopt EVs. So if they just said, every time you register your car, what's your odometer reading, sir? Oh, your odometer reading is 20,000 kilometres more than last year. So your road tax, whatever you want to call it, is X dollars per month for the next year. That's what you've got to pay. Or when you register your car, that's what you've got to pay, however they do it. But I think everyone would say that's fair. It's directly linked to how many kilometres I drive, not to how fuel efficient my car is, directly linked to that, and it applies to everyone the same. So that would make sense. Maybe it applies to vehicles on weight. Maybe trucks, for example, might pay a higher rate. Maybe there'd be some differences there. Bottom line is, if you're driving an EV now, live it up while you can, because you're going to pay, at some stage you're going to pay more. But it's still, even if you did that, it's still dramatically cheaper driving an EV. Even if you add 2 cents per kilometre, for example, dramatically cheaper than paying for the fuel, regardless of fuel prices now. Go back a month ago, it was still dramatically cheaper to drive your EV with the fuel prices versus the electricity prices. And it would be lovely if both of them had a couple of cents per kilometre added on. And if it was taken away to just be spent on the roads, I think people would be very happy. Maybe people aren't excited by spending money, but if all that money went to the roads and they could see the roads being better, they'd be pretty happy with that. So maybe we'll link back to roads again.
In a fast-paced world where everything is at our fingertips and only an app click away, where textile is so often sacrificed for functionality, there are still some among us who prefer the finer things. And they're only just now finding that you don't have to compromise your sense of style when you're operating your devices. Folks, scuffed black plastic and yellowed silicone is giving away to sleek, earthy tones with fine leather finishes. If you shop at the high end of the marketplace, then we've found a charger that you'll be proud to drop into your Louis Vuitton shoulder bag or your Rod and Gun Woodstock office satchel. Again, no cash for comments here. It'll turn heads at the airport for all the right reasons the next time you charge up. Matt, this charger you're about to tell us about is a status symbol.
Absolutely, and so many of these things are now. And I just think someone sat around and said, how much do you reckon we can get away with charging people to put their chargers in something that looks pretty flash? And I would have thought a couple $100 is pushing it.
Yes, a couple of $100 is the ceiling for what you want for your battery.
I would have thought, but no. The Hermès MagSafe paddock charger range, you can buy the nice little bag that you put your charging devices in, all stamped with a lovely H, all made of beautiful leather, but that'll set you back around $7,800. Now, it gets better than that because that doesn't come with the charging brick. That comes with all the charging bits, but not the actual brick itself.
Right.
Hermès said, you've probably got one of those. You don't need our brick. So just here's the rest of it there. And it looks lovely. You've got some lovely wireless charging devices. You can charge up your phone. You can charge up your AirPods and have it all wrapped in leather with the charger that you use in a lovely leather case. But I just struggle, James. I'm struggling here.
$7,000? Yeah, but when you pull it out at the airport, people are going to go, that person's travelling first class.
You may as well just pull out your wallet and have a couple of $1,000 of $100 notes sitting there and go, I've got some money, okay?
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like that's the only reason you would use
Well,
this.
I'm wondering how many times you could go into just a tech store and just buy yourself a new battery as well.
For that kind of money, I'm not going to charge my batteries anymore. In fact, I'm just going to buy new phones. When the charging case is 3 times, 4 times the cost of a phone, you start to wonder, have the accessories gone crazy?
Too far.
Too far.
Yeah.
The charging cable looked lovely. It was a lovely braided charging cable. I reckon you could flex that around a few times and it wouldn't break. I'd want to have a lifetime warranty for this kind of money.
Yeah.
But the big thing that gets me with technology and buying expensive parts of technology is, well, the old saying with the Rolex is you don't buy a Rolex for yourself, you buy a Rolex for the next generation. But I buy a smartwatch and I know in a year's time, maybe 2, I'm going to replace it because there's new technology out. And I know my parents-in-law bought my son a smartwatch at one stage. And when he got rid of it a year later and got the new one, they were a bit offended by that. And I went, well, I'm sorry, that's technology.
It's a smartwatch.
A Rolex, yeah, sure, you keep for generations,
Yeah.
but a smartwatch you keep for a year or maybe 2 years at most.
Gone are the days where you bought a watch to last.
Yeah, that's right. So you want the latest things, you want the latest technology. The things in this particular charger I think are going to be around for a few years, but we know wireless charging is advancing. We know we've got faster wireless charging. MagSafe was a bit of a revolution where it's always going to be sitting on just the right spot with that charging.
Yeah.
Different devices we charge our watches faster. This is probably going to do you for a couple of years. But past that, wow, it's a lot of money to spend. And I do get the feeling that some people buy this sort of thing, same with their racing simulator in their lounge room, just want to be able to say, I've got that.
Look at what I've got.
Look at what I've got. That's right. Yeah, I'm being a bit harsh on some people out there, but maybe not. Maybe I'm being...
But when you're carrying around a charger that's made of black plastic and it just looks like everyone else's charger.
Not good enough?
Not good enough.
Oh, I'm going to have to get a new charger, aren't I? Can't I just go and stamp mine, my black boring charger, and just put a little stamp on it?
You
Put
can get
M,
some
a big
paint
M on
and
there or something?
colour it, get some texture.
Yeah, maybe that. Get it personalised.
The AI revolution has changed so much of how things are done already, and it's only been really 3 years or so. While some people remain cautious or even oblivious, AI's influence creeps into facets of daily life that you may not even realise. Far from erring on the side of caution, the Scottish Government is doubling right down into AI, and they're set to invest heavily in the AI technology to improve their systems and services throughout. Matt, he's hoping that the government efficiency and growth don't have to come at the cost of ethics and the environment.
Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about the cool concept of investment.
But I've noticed headlines today, and we're recording today, so this episode goes later on. But there are some members in governments in other places on the planet that are saying we need to stop funding data centers until we've really started to police what AI is able to do.
Yeah.
This is going the other way. This is saying we just want AI to give us better ideas.
Well, the Scottish government thinks that there's a huge injection to their economy if they lean into the AI model rather than run away from the AI model. And with so much technology, I often talk about stand at the ocean, try and stop the tide coming in, stop the waves, whatever. Yeah. You're going to get knocked over. And with technology, sometimes embracing it is probably better than trying to stop it. And so the Scottish government said, we think we can add £23 billion to our economy in the next 9 years if we lean into it and really take advantage of it. So that's a reasonable injection. I don't know the size of the Scottish economy, but £23 billion seems like a reasonable number to go and add to that. They think their research shows there's about $1 trillion, I assume that's US dollars, in global AI investment. So there are some companies out there throwing some money towards AI, thinking there's something to see here and there's something to come out of this. Now, we've seen booms before, we've seen technology booms before, we've seen bubbles burst in terms of technology before, but sometimes it builds up, it gets a huge amount of hype, it bursts, but then underneath there's still something and then it grows at a more reasonable rate, and I suspect that's what will happen with AI. But there's going to be some scary things happen along the way. So Scotland's launched AI Scotland, which is a total national agency to coordinate this innovation, economic growth strategy. So they're really signalling to the world, if you want to do some investment in AI, here we are, we're ready to take on this. There's an AI computing campus in Scotland, £2.5 billion is being spent on that. They want to be a really advanced AI hub across the world. They want people to travel there and live there and be there as part of this whole investment. There's a £15 billion AI park proposed in Ayrshire. So there's lots of things happening. It's enough for me to say, when I'm over that part of the world, I might go to Scotland and have a look at some of these things that are happening, because obviously there's a lot of investment. The University of Edinburgh has got their Archer 2 supercomputer. They're planning a $750 million facility to be a research powerhouse with a new supercomputer there. So there's a lot of work being done, and they're seeing some results. So one of the things we've talked about before is breast cancer and detecting breast cancer. They've seen already some AI-assisted breast screening has improved detection rates by 10.4%, but also reduced wait times from 14 days to 3. So there are some real-world results coming out of this. They're on the good side. Yes, there's some scary things that are happening as well, without a doubt. And there's some people who are worried about the ethics, the privacy, and when AI basically takes over the world and removes the need for humans to exist, and then they can just have their fun and do whatever they want to do.
Well, the Scottish government is probably very interested in also just getting AI to understand their voice commands. Apparently of all the accents here on the planet, the Scottish one is the hardest one for Alexa or Google or whatever.
Forget AI, I can't understand it. So
I just want to go to Target.
So there's been some work done on some early dementia scans via the retina. So you scan your retina and that can detect your likelihood to have dementia. You've got some teachers that love the idea of AI helping in some of their admin. You've got toxic exposure for firefighters is being reduced by AI being the first one to go and detect some of that. So there's a whole range of things. Jobs is the big thing. How many jobs are going to be lost? And I think jobs are going to change. So we can't say let's not have it because jobs will be lost. We need to see how we cater to that in the future and how jobs will change in the future.
Someone made a comment to me not long ago that there's been a pattern with technology. We keep fearing that jobs are going to be lost as technology grows. With every other form of technology to this point, it's only built more jobs.
Yeah, that's right. But if I'm doing a job, if I'm a waiter in a restaurant and someone says, you know what, they're going to bring a robot waiter, that's my job gone.
Yeah, that's your job.
So I'm not sure if you've noticed it, but now, finally, when I've got to the tender age I'm at, I've noticed that people are selfish and they're really worried about themselves. Maybe it's the people that hang around, I'm not sure. But certainly people are very focused on their individual circumstances. I remember talking to some...
In that moment as well.
In that moment, I talked to some people about mining and my view on where the future of coal mining was going. And this particular person said to me, don't you stop coal mining, because if you do that, we take away $500,000 a year of our household, because her husband and two of her sons living at home worked in a local coal mine. So if tomorrow coal mining stopped, where are they going to replace that $500,000 from? So people are very focused on that. Forget about the planet. Forget about what it's doing to the planet. Forget about better alternatives.
Yeah.
We get $500,000 from the coal mining industry, so I want to keep coal mining going. So people are a little bit focused on that from a selfish perspective. But you're right. When we bring in new technology, it creates other opportunities. Someone's got to build some of these applications, some of these jobs. Someone's got to work out how to make data centers better. And one of the big things in terms of the environment is that the amount of energy and water that data centers use is incredible. So Scotland, for example, has got 38.4 terawatt hours of renewable electricity that they're generating already, but they want to keep increasing that. So again, let's make it better for data centers there. If I'm an eco-conscious company, which hopefully every company is, then I want to put my data centers in a country where I know the power is being generated via renewables rather than just keep burning more coal. And so there's all these things. But when you've got a country, not just companies, a country that says, we're going to embrace this, then you know things are real. Probably the main thing that I want to visit, which will be relevant to our next story as well, is the National Robotarium, which I can only assume is a place where robots go to be created. And that's what I'm after.
Robotarium.
The Robotarium.
So it's not like a museum for robots?
I hope not.
No.
I'd be disappointed if we had a museum for robots yet. I want to see lots more new ones created before we have a museum for robots. Oh, I remember this model. It could only make you bacon and eggs. It couldn't make you an omelette. Oh, yes, I remember that model. That's what I think of a museum.
I'm just picturing you'll see K9 from Doctor Who in the 70s and you'll see the robot out of Lost in Space. And,
yeah, right. No cartoon robots in there, nothing out of the Jetsons. You think real...
Maybe there's a place for Rosie.
Real ones in inverted commas that weren't really real ones like R2-D2 or C-3PO. So that's it. Scotland's investing. Maybe we should be investing in Australia too. Maybe we should be the smart country.
And speaking of robots, it's time for our regular robot Butler update. Now, with bipedal robots now moving into factories and storehouses, it surely cannot be too long before they hit the domestic market as well. Now, China has already churned out a bunch of models. They've got about 40 models or so. Prices are set to tumble as competition so commonly dictates. So, Matt, is this going to become a thing in the next few years for us?
So I did say earlier that 2026 was the year of the EV, the year of the AV, and I'm going to say...
The humanoid robot.
The humanoid robot. The year of the humanoid robot.
You heard it here, folks.
Not in years to come, this year. This year, I want to have a humanoid robot in my home. Now,
I want to come and visit you with that humanoid robot because I know I'm not going to be able to afford one.
Well,
I want to play with it.
And that's the thing that I was thinking of.
I play handball with it.
Yeah. Look, don't distract it. It's making me breakfast, okay?
Right.
So... what's the limit? And that's the thing I started thinking about. So humanoid robots now you can get, which aren't perfect yet, and I'm going to buy one before they're perfect. I'm going to buy one that's just okay. At the moment, you can buy...
I want to visit your house 2 weeks later. And there's cooking stuck to the walls and the ceiling and the clothes are everywhere. And you'll go, it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
It's going to learn. So you can get them now for about $8,500 Aussie up to about $30,000. And so I started thinking, how much would I be prepared to pay? And I'm not prepared to pay $30,000. What I am prepared to pay, because you can get some of these models on a monthly lease, try it before you buy it. And so I would be prepared to pay hundreds, not thousands of dollars for a robot in my home to give it a crack. And I'd be happy to sign up for a 3-month minimum lease for a few $100s a month. And you can get some of these now. They're getting down the high hundreds, maybe low thousands. So I just want to wait till they come in a little bit more. But I wouldn't mind seeing what they can do for that as well. So if I can get one for, maybe $500 a month that can do most things in my home, I'm happy with that. If it can make you breakfast when you come around, make you a coffee, it's pretty tricky. The thing that I want to see before I get one is I want to see it crack the egg. So when I'm making my omelette, there's a lot of skill that we don't realise we have when we crack the egg. We hit it just hard enough on the edge of something that it'll crack without exploding in our hands, without rupturing the yolk.
Just holding onto the egg. You can't hold onto it too tight because you're going to crush it.
That's
you
right.
can't hold onto it too loose or you'll let go and it'll fall on the floor. I'm just thinking that you're going to have a lot of egg mix on the floor.
Well, I occasionally juggle eggs just to stir up my wife, and occasionally the one
Your dog's going to be whimpering in the corner.
Or maybe the dog will love it because it licks up the eggs on the ground. So battery life's a bit of a limitation. We've got some of the cheaper models will only go for an hour.
Okay.
That's enough time to cook
An hour
my
of
omelette.
fun. Yeah, it's
Surely.
an hour enough to make some mess.
That's right. 4 hours for some of the premium devices. They're not really made to lift a lot of weight, which is fine because there's not much around my house that's very heavy. Some of them might be able to lift as much as 70 kilograms standing still, but to actually move it, 25 kilograms. So that's my wife's bag when we go on a trip. There's 25 kilos. So that's her limit she sets on herself. So I just wonder how far away, but this year, hopefully this year sometime, I'll be able to go and get this robot in my home. And I'm happy with laundry and cooking and cleaning up. That's if they can do those things, I'm happy with those things to start with. Doesn't have to wash my
So
car.
let's hope your kids are listening. They know what to get you for your Christmas present this year.
The gutter, I don't need the gutters done by my robot. I'll get
No.
someone else to do those. I just
Okay.
want a few basic tasks around the home.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that would give me a bit more time. And I'd pay for that. I'd pay for a bit more time.
So what if
because-
it's just to collect the mail?
Yeah, we don't get much mail anymore.
Makes
So
it
no,
very
I want-
easy.
I want it
Can't
more.
go too far wrong.
I want it more than the mail.
More than
I'm
the
a bit,
mail, okay.
I'm a bit more demanding than the mail, but I'm not stupidly demanding. I don't need to even iron my clothes. I'm happy with just washing my clothes.
You've got indoor plants. It comes in with a hose and it starts watering the indoor plants.
And the gyprock and and the carpet. So this year, James, that's one of
Gonna
my little
happen,
things I want.
and you'll sell tickets, and people can come and see it before.
Well, I did wonder about that. I was talking to someone on radio there one day, and they said, "I'd love to see you with a robot. Bring it down to the studio." I went, wonder how it would go getting in the passenger seat, getting in the car as we go. We're just going for a drive today, Mr. or Mrs. Robot. We're just going down to a radio studio.
Can you please sit still and not flail about?
That's right.
That's right.
Don't distract me while I'm driving, please. So this is the year, James. This year, I want a robot this year.
You've called it. You've called it. And that's all there is today. The crowd is thinning and everyone is making their way to the gates. We are done for another episode. Thanks for another Cracking Tech Talk, Matt.
And that's my pleasure. And it's a bit of a long one today. There was lots of interesting, juicy stuff to talk about. So hopefully listeners are okay with it. I'm sure they'll tell us about it if they're not. But I'm going to the swimming pool. I want to start training to the point where I can then put my jet in. I've got to train before I get the jet, so I'm fit enough to handle the
So
jet.
you're right, yeah.
Because I've just got this
So
image.
You won't be embarrassed in front of that jet.
Well, I was actually more thinking of the image you gave me of me pinned against the back wall because I'm flailing away with my dog paddle and I just can't get
you
further.
want help, somebody.
James said this would happen.
And thank you, folks, for tuning in once again to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk is the podcast loaded with virtual vitamins and minerals. It's the kind of listening that you can start your day with and provide the vitality, the vim and the vigour that you'll need for a healthy and productive week. Grab yourself a bowl of Tech Talk, folks. Now, I'm your host, James Eddy, wishing you a smooth sailing week ahead. Don't forget that we'll be back in another week's time with another fresh new episode. In the meantime, take care, be good, and we'll see you when we see you.